welcome. Today we're speaking with Anush Babajanyan. She's a photojournalist. She's been a guest at Civilnet before, but she's been on the front line from April 3 until April 5, and she's just returned to Yerevan. And her photo story from Nagorno Karabakh, The Return of Dark Days, is one of the first photo stories that we saw with a very intimate approach to the contact line and whatever's happening in Nagorno Karabakh. Thank you, Anush, for joining us today. We're happy to see you safe and sound back in Yerevan. Anush, as a photojournalist, how did you decide to leave for Nagorno Karabakh?
As a photojournalist, as soon as I found out what was happening, I felt I had no choice. It's not like I didn't want to go, I had no choice, but I really wanted to go and I had no choice. I just simply had to. So that's how I traveled.
So in your photo story, we see from the beginning, kind of from the beginning of your journey. So where did your journey start? How did you manage to go? Because for me, it's fascinating that you went on your own, no agencies standing behind you, no one supporting you in an organizational way. So where did you start and how did it continue?
Well, it's pretty normal for a freelance photographer. You have to get your way around, and so this is what I did. I called some people that I knew in Karabakh. A good friend of mine, Knar Baban, is an active journalist there. I consulted her, asked, you know, what do you think? You know, how do I do this and that? Called a couple of more people that I knew were on the ground, journalists. I realized that everyone was quite busy with their own things, you know, someone working with their radio, the other one with their website, and after all, I'm on my own, just as I've been, you know, and that's how I went. And as I got there, I was met by a taxi driver who knew another photographer who was just randomly traveling with me, and this photographer said, "Oh, I know this taxi driver, you can really trust him." And then he went away, like he didn't really have anything to do with this guy. So I said, okay, why not, you know, let's work together, why don't you take me to places? And he said yes. His name was Ashot. He was a war veteran. He was the Nagorno Karabakh war veteran, and he really wanted to volunteer to also go to the front line, but they didn't let him go because he had a surgery, because a bullet hit his stomach during the war and he had to have a surgery now. They didn't let him go, and he couldn't, you know, help. He wanted to do something, and he was happy that he could do this together with me, you know. So he drove me around, and he was fearless, and whatever, you know, I asked for us to do, it was fine. But that's how it all happened.
And I see that you have photos from the bus with volunteers going to Nagorno Karabakh. How did that happen?
The photos from the bus was, well, on April, on the night of April 3rd, war veterans and not only war veterans, but volunteers just started to come to Stepanakert, and the Prime Minister was going to meet them. So I photographed this event.
And
it was in the
there was another one before Stepanakert. There was a photo of a bus going from Gyumri to Nagorno Karabakh.
Oh, that was something else. The officer was from Gyumri, but the bus was just the one that I was on. Myself traveling from Yerevan to Stepanakert, the minibus. There were several servicemen traveling urgently, and one of them had just returned to Gyumri 2 days ago, and then he got a call from his post in Ardam, which is very close, it's almost at the front line, that he urgently has to return, and he was going back. And then a person sitting right behind him, which I almost didn't photograph, I met in Martakert 2 days days later, and then he reminded me, he said, I was in the minibus, but you didn't really notice me. And he was in Martakert, actually at the front line, receiving all those bullets, and it was just interesting.
Anush, I heard that a lot of places were not accessible for photographers, yet I see that you went to Mardaget, and from your photos I see that you were in the trenches and like very close to the front line. How did you manage to do that?
The posts were and are not easily accessible. Some groups are accompanied, but then some others aren't really, are rejected. So it's really not easy. But Martakert, the town of Martakert, was not very difficult to access. However, it's a dangerous zone, and there, where I photographed, it wasn't a post; it was just a military point, you know, where soldiers had to position themselves. They were positioned there. So I approached them, and it was interesting. I met by chance another wonderful photographer, Vahan Stepanyan, right there, and then we saw the soldiers, and we decided to go and, you know, talk to them a little, and so we did, and they were two very nice guys, one of them very young, 19 years old, and he was only a soldier, and the other one was 27, and he was a lieutenant. So we were just standing outside and talking, and then suddenly they received, where everyone was asked to hide, like hide, tak. So they said, yeah, you have to come and hide. So we go hide in the shelter, and we're just sitting there. So that's where I took the photo. And then I just left, and we went on photographing. And
you have a photo of the defense minister in
Prime Minister
in an office. That is something, I think, a very hard photo to make, in a sense, to be allowed in.
This was right before the Prime Minister was going to meet the volunteers, war veterans, and myself and several journalists were standing inside that building, which was the, I think, the building of the community of veterans. So for just about, honestly, for just about 30 seconds, they allowed all of us in. They said, you can come in the office, take pictures, 30 seconds, leave. So that's where we photographed.
And from the story, do you have a photo that really speaks to you? That was maybe not noticeable for us in a way in content, but it's very dear to you.
The dearest for me is this moment with the soldiers in the trench, because it was just, you see, it was their moment. It was theirs. It wasn't mine.
And you have a photo of Varinak's funeral, the 12-year-old boy who was killed on April 2nd.
Yes. Yeah.
What's it like to witness such a tragedy, to be there as a witness and someone who will, you know, keep this moment forever?
Witnessing the funeral was, yes, it was a special and one of the saddest moments. The boy's name is actually Varashak, and the relatives tried to tell that to me and the journalists. They said that the information went out the wrong way from the very beginning. The boy's name is Varashak. And I was extremely surprised because my son's name is Varashak Grigorian, just as this little boy. And that just was almost shocking for me.
Do you plan to go back for more stories? What's going to be your focus on your second trip?
I will try to access the military posts, but I'm not sure You know, I will go in any case, and honestly, the military posts are not the most important. Yes, we all know that's happening. We have people photographing there. I may get in there and photograph there as well, but the spirit in Karabakh and the pain that's ruling, you know, it's everywhere. And the actual shootings aren't necessarily mirroring or the conflict. The conflict is in the whole country, it's in the air, it's in everything. That's why one of the most important photographs in this story that I made was these trees, you know, the trees and the trail that leads to a village between Stepanakert and the front line, because it's the life that suffers. People, feelings, emotions, that's, you know, that's it above all. And the pain that something like that can still be happening, that after all the, you know, intelligence, things that humanity has reached, in the end we'll just be standing in front of each other and shooting at each other. That's just primitive, you know. And that's why I believe that pictures of different type have to be made to remind us that no, we don't need to be necessarily just proud that this is our soldiers, this is what's happening. We have to talk about the pain that's happening. We have to talk in terms of peace.
Yes. Thank you, Anush. I wish you a safe return yet again, and I wish everyone who's on the contact line, if it's a journalist working, the people living there and the soldiers, peace, and thank you to the viewers for joining us.